systematic reviews a lot in the work that we do to be able to package that information and present it to policymakers.
I'm an evidence synthesis specialist at the Africa Center for Evidence, which is based at the University of Johannesburg. My role within the center is twofold. So I lead on the production of different pieces of evidence synthesis, for example, systematic reviews, rapid evidence assessment, meta-analysis, etc. And we currently do 2 reviews, one on women and community empowerment and one on ecosystem services. But I also work on the translation of evidence synthesis into decision making, in particular with the government of South Africa. And some of the mechanisms that we put in place there is capacity building around mentoring, networking, and relationship building on a more wider scale. So systematic reviews are really about synthesis, like the synthesis of existing information. So the principle of a systematic review is to create new knowledge out of existing knowledge. So as a research method, it is about being very structured and transparent in collecting all the available evidence on a given question, and then to structure that evidence, to appraise it, and to synthesize it so that we can understand, well, what is the overall answer that we can derive from the totality of evidence. And that's quite a interesting mechanism, in particular if we talk about decision making, because it does a lot. It gives you a couple of strength. So the first thing that a review provides you with is you can address the bias of a single study. So to take the analogy of Mrs. Adichie's idea of the danger of a single story. So if we base our decision on a single piece of information, be it a single expert, a single consultant, a single piece of a single study, there's a danger that these studies or informations are incomplete. So it's not that they're wrong, but they're, as these single stories, they might be incomplete. So by basing our decisions on the totality of evidence, like the entire body of information available to us, they become more, the decisions themselves become more trustworthy and defensible. And also from a perspective that most decision-making happens in highly complex social settings, it's unlikely that there's ever going to be a single study that can address such complexity. So by looking at the totality of the available evidence, we might be able to address complexity in a better way. And the third advantage is that reviews give you is that often by looking at the totality of evidence, you see new patterns emerging. So sometimes if you have 5 primary studies and you read them individually, you might miss an overall pattern, a bigger answer that emerges from it. And then lastly, from a very pragmatic point of view, it's just easier for a decision maker to read one study that has synthesized 50 or 5 studies for him or for her. And if that meta study, that systematic review, is policy relevant and more accessible, it saves a lot of time. So instead of having to go through all these studies, the decision maker, she can just go to a single study, which is
My name is Ferdinand Okwaro. I'm a senior knowledge translation scientist at the African Institute for Development Policy, that is in short AFIDEP. At AFIDEP, I'm currently involved in 2 projects, Secure Health and AFIDEP. And Secure Health stands for Strengthening the Capacity to Use Research Evidence, and AFIDEP is Evidence for Development. In these 2 projects, we are implementing interventions that are aimed at increasing the capacity of individuals and institutions to use research evidence in their day-to-day activities of policy formulation. We're both implementing the interventions as well as evaluating the impact of those interventions.
You recently attended a training in systematic reviews. Yeah. What value did that add to your work?
Well, that was an interesting training because what I would say is this training gave us kind of like a broad definition of what systematic reviews are. So, and also gave us kind of like a toolkit of what you can use or how you can get to doing a systematic review. if you ever got to want to do one. So I would say we had a rough idea of what systematic reviews are and how you can probably do them, but not this systematic way of from A to Z of doing a systematic review. And as you know, at AFIDEP we say we do systematic reviews, but we also review systematic reviews. So at an individual level, it was important to have all of us go through the process. But also at an institutional level, it's important that all of us are on the same page on what is required or what a systematic review, doing a systematic review would be if we all went to do it. And also the fact that systematic reviews is a group activity. It's rarely an individual activity. So having all, it was a good opportunity that all members of staff involved in policy, advising policy, strengthening the capacity for staff to use evidence, went through that process.
I'm Murunga. I'm a Knowledge Translation Officer at the African Institute for Development Policy, and I manage the Adolescent Sexual and Reproductive Health Program at the Institute. Systematic reviews are a great source of evidence, mainly because they already package evidence from a range of primary studies that researchers as well as policymakers and other audiences can use to draw up some key evidence about issues that they're working on. So I don't have to go and look through 100 publications, primary research. I can get this one document that compiles evidence, and mostly of high quality, or anyway, at the very least, the papers there have been appraised for their quality. So in general, it's a great source of evidence, and actually it's the best source of evidence when you talk about the types and the levels of evidence that we have.
Evidence from systematic reviews combines different sources of evidence, so it's a synthesized form, as opposed to evidence from one study, one single study. Two studies could be pro and another study could be against. So when you have all that synthesized together in a systematic review, that's, as was said in the training, that's like the gold standard of evidence. Okay. So you're in a better position dealing with systematic reviews than one single source evidence.
In your most recent paper, you say it starts with the policymaker. How so?
Yes, so the paper, The Science of Using Science, which was done with the UCL Epicenter and the Alliance for Useful Evidence in collaboration with our center, we talk about putting the decision maker first, which should be actually, if you think of it, a no-brainer. So if we talk about decision making and evidence users, why don't we start with users themselves, with the decision makers? So these are highly skilled, very senior people, and they know how to make decisions in a way. So if we design systems and mechanisms that support them in their decision making, if we make that assumption, we need to make sure that it is very salient and very salient to their context, so that they perceive it as something they like, as well as something that is beneficial to themselves. Because we deal with highly skilled people. So in order to make our case here, we need to be quite clear what is the benefit to